Well, hello everyone. My name is Hitarth and I'm an engineering student. And today we are going to talk about history. Now, you might think, why is an engineering student talking about history? Well, one reason is because it is one of my niche interest. And अगर तुम सोचो, why do we read history? Well, some people say we read history because we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. Well, that is true for some people, but for me, why I read history or why I preach about history, like I'm doing it right now, it is because I take inspiration. I take inspiration from history, I take inspiration from how events unfolded, I take inspiration from people's lives. So today, we are going to talk about history. Now, सबसे पहले, what are we going to talk about in history? Now, you might have read the title, and the title is The Great Man Theory. The Great Man Theory of History. क्या है Great Man Theory? हम इसके बारे में क्यों बात कर रहे हैं? So, basically, the Great Man Theory was given in 1840 by a Scottish historian by the name Thomas Carlyle. Thomas Carlyle ने दी थी Great Man Theory. एंड थॉमस कार्लाइल ने एक क्वेश्चन प्रोवोक किया था और वो क्वेश्चन ये था कि व्हाट इफ हिस्ट्री इज जस्ट द बायोग्राफी ऑफ ग्रेट मैन. जो हिस्ट्री है, जो इतिहास है, वो कहीं बायोग्राफी तो नहीं है ग्रेट मैन की. और देन इसके ऊपर रिसर्च हुई. इवन प्रेजेंट डे हिस्टोरियंस टॉक अबाउट इट, आर्ग्यू अबाउट दिस, अबाउट द ग्रेट मैन थ्योरी, जो कि 1850 में दी गई थी. सो नाउ वी आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट दिस. अब ऐसा है कि ग्रेट मैन थ्योरी के हिसाब से हिस्ट्री वुड हैव अनफोल्डेड. जो इवेंट्स होने थे वो होंगे, वो पहले भी वैसे ही होते और वो अभी भी वैसे ही हो रहे हैं. मतलब समझ रहे हो कि लाइक हिस्ट्री में अगर वो ग्रेट मैन नहीं होते इन दैट पर्टिकुलर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, तब भी हिस्ट्री नॉर्मली ही आगे बढ़ती और वो इवेंट्स वैसे ही अनफोल्ड होते. सो व्हाट डिड दीज ग्रेट मैन डू? वो ग्रेट मैन उस पर्टिकुलर जगह पे क्यों थे? Well, according to me and according to a lot of historians and according to Thomas Carlyle, those great men were like engines. They accelerated those events. वो events जो थे, they might have happened gradually. कोई event जो था, हो सकता है कि वो event होता let's say 10 सालों में, तो वो event एक ही साल में हो गया. कोई empire है वो crumble होता, आराम से 10-20 साल लगते, but because of one historical figure, वो empire एक या 2 साल में ही खत्म हो गया. So that gradual unfolding of events that didn't take place. It was an accelerated unfolding of events. So that is the great man theory. Now there are the big three of great man theory. And those big three are for me and for a lot of historians. Sorry for this. So the big three are, now we are going to talk about the big three. Now who are the big three of the great man theory? So number one, it's Alexander the Great. Number two, it's Julius Caesar. And number three is Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, you might have heard about all these people, and these are like one of the greatest names that have ever written in history. जो नहीं कहते कि सुनहरे अक्षरों से जिनका नाम लिखा होता है हिस्ट्री में. These are the people. For me, because I derive inspiration from them, and for a lot of historians too. सबसे पहले Alexander the Great. Now, in this series, we are going to make 3 parts. I'm going to make 3 parts. Hopefully, I'm going to make 3 parts. I don't know when the second part is going to come out और कब ये part भी बाहर जाएगा, I don't know. But we are going to make 3 parts. And the first part is about Alexander the Great. So, Alexander the Great. Now, a lot of Indians जिनके अंदर Alexander the Great के लिए काफ़ी hatred है या एक काफ़ी resentment है. एंड जब भी मैं बोलता हूँ अपने दोस्तों के सामने भी अबाउट अलेक्जेंडर द ग्रेट, सम ऑफ देम आर लाइक, हाँ उसे तो पोरस ने हरा दिया था, हमने टीवी सीरियल में देखा है, पोरस ने हरा दिया था अलेक्जेंडर द ग्रेट को. क्या है अलेक्जेंडर द ग्रेट? दुनिया जीती, इंडिया में आया, हार गया. हम नहीं पढ़ना उसके बारे में, हम नहीं पढ़ रहे यार. लाइक इट इज अ टीवी शो. अ टीवी शो इज अ डिफरेंट थिंग एंड व्हाट रियल हिस्ट्री इज आर्ग्यूएबली. मतलब लोग कहते हैं कि अलेक्जेंडर डिडंट कॉन्कर इंडिया एंड अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स, बट इसका मतलब नहीं है अलेक्जेंडर की पूरी लाइफ खत्म हो गई है. ठीक है, वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड एज इंडियंस कि जस्ट बिकॉज अलेक्जेंडर ने इंडिया पर अटैक करा, ही वॉज अ इन्वेडर, बट इसका मतलब नहीं है कि ही वॉज अ बैड पर्सन इन जनरल या ही वॉज समवन जिसकी बारे में जान के कुछ फायदा ही नहीं है. ऐसा नहीं है. आई पर्सनली लव अलेक्जेंडर. आई पर्सनली derive a lot of inspiration from him. So this video is like, I am going to change your perspective on Alexander. So let's start. Let's start with Alexander. So please don't mind if I look down because मेरे यहाँ पे notes हैं, because definitely there are a lot of Greek terms in Alexander's story. So that's why मैंने अपने notes भी खोल रखे हैं यहाँ पे. So starting with Alexander's birth, and the birth is very very controversial, very special. Like जब आदमी पैदा हुआ है तभी से वो मतलब जैसे अलेक्जेंडर द ग्रेट है तो अलेक्जेंडर की तरह पैदा हुआ है, लेकिन उसके बर्थ से ही पता चल रहा है उसकी स्टोरीज से या जो लेजेंड्स उसके अराउंड फॉर्म हुई हैं कि यार लाइक ही वॉज समवन स्पेशल, या हाउ इवेंट्स अनफोल्डेड अराउंड हिम वर बिकॉज ही वॉज अ चूजन वन. एंड द ग्रेट मैन थ्योरी इज अबाउट चूजन वंस. These people are the chosen ones of history. That's why they were in that particular situation in that particular period of time. So he was born in 356 BC, and like imagine before Jesus Christ, before all this Christian thing, Alexander the Great was born, and he was born in Macedonia, जो कि प्रेजेंट डे ग्रीक का इलाका है, उसके आसपास ही वॉज बॉर्न. ग्रीक, रोमेनिया, ये वाला जो इलाका है वहाँ पे Alexander the Great was born in 356 BC. And when Alexander the Great was born, his father was the king of Macedonia. He was born to the ruler of Macedonia. His father's name was Philip II. His mother's name was Olympia. Now, the special part about this is कि when he was born. Now, let me tell you, लोग कहेंगे कि Philip II, Alexander was like one of those kings, rags to riches वाला. नहीं, it is not like that. Philip II was an amazing king. Philip II was one of the greatest military minds of that particular time. So we cannot say this. But now talking about Alexander. When Alexander was born to Philip II, so Alexander की mother ने कहा, ओलंपिया ने कहा फिलिप को कि this is not your son, and this is the son of Zeus himself, जो कि Zeus होता है the ultimate god. He is the son of Zeus. And he was shocked कि what the fuck is she talking about? But this was the story. So Olympia was a very cult cult oriented woman. काफ़ी cults and everything से जुड़ी हुई थी Olympia. So there were times, like in the story, there were times when Olympia was one day Philip II walked into their bathroom or walked into their room, and he saw that Olympia is in the bathtub, and the bathtub is filled with snakes, or with like there are different stories. The bathtub is filled with snakes, or there's a very large serpent around her. So this was known as the Dionysus snake cult, I guess. इसका नाम था Dionysus snake cult. So she was a part of that. So अब यार तुम्हारी बीवी ऐसी हरकतें करेंगी तो obviously तुम उससे दूर ही जाओगे ना यार कि ये क्या कर रही है. समझ रहे हो कि like she is talking about some Zeus, she is doing all this cult stuff. But that actually happened with Philip II. So when Olympia was doing this, उसके बाद when Alexander was about to be born, so Olympia told Zeus कि this is not your son, this is the son of Zeus himself, because last night a lightning came from the heavens. The lightning came and it went into my womb, and that's why I know कि he's the son of Zeus himself. Now that's a very interesting story. Now अब हमें ये story की तरह लग रहा है, but when you think of it right now, it is like how Alexander की image was formed. This might be a political move, ठीक है, we don't know for sure. This might be a political move because history is कहते हैं ना, history वही लिखता है जो जीतता है. So the legends around that person are also very important for us to understand. अगर हम वो legends को नहीं समझेंगे तो we cannot understand about that person. So she said stuff like this. And when Alexander was born, it is said that he was a marvelous child. ठीक है, he was extraordinary. वो extraordinary एक बच्चा था. And some of the things जो हमें लगती हैं कि why Alexander was extraordinary यार. So one of those stories are कि when Alexander was 10-year-old, तो जब Alexander 10 साल का एक बच्चा था, so there was a horse in Macedonia. ठीक है, his father bought a horse from somewhere. And that horse was black colored, beautiful horse, mighty, marvelous horse, जिसका नाम था Bucephalus. ठीक है, and that horse wasn't be वो horse को कोई control नहीं कर पा रहा था. No one was able to control that horse. It was a wild horse. So जितने भी लोग थे, they were like how are we going to control this? नहीं हो रहा है, and they are letting it be wild. letting it do what it wants to do. Then at that time, Alexander was 10 years old. Okay? And Philip was sitting over there. Imagine Philip is sitting, and then in front of him, Alexander sees Bucephalus doing all this, and he realizes that Bucephalus, जो घोड़ा है, he is afraid of his own shadow. वो अपनी shadow से डर रहा है. So Alexander, as a 10-year-old kid, now the 10-year-old part is important in the story. He went up to the wild horse and he brought him to the sunlight, and now he wasn't able to see, he was seeing his shadow, and he was getting feared from it. I'm really sorry, this is my first YouTube video, and I'm a little bit nervous, I'm a little bit camera conscious. So yeah, he was in the sun and he was fearing from his shadow. But because he was fearing from his shadow, what Alexander did was Bucephalus को लेके shadowy region में आ गया, जहाँ पे मतलब धूप नहीं आ रही है. So when he did that, Bucephalus calmed down, and then he tamed him. He tamed the horse. तो अब इससे हमें, like, this is also a political move. हो सकता है this is a political move, how legends are formed around people. Now, like, Alexander, the king Alexander, so बचपन से he is the one who tames the wild, who tames things which haven't been tamed before, which haven't been tamed by other people, and like he tames things. So like that was the kind of image that was formed around Alexander. Then uske baad, when this happened, so there's a very interesting statement that Philip II gave. Philip II was looking and was ये सब देख रहा था, and Philip II said that, son, Macedonia is a very small kingdom for someone like you. Go seek out and make your own kingdom. This is one of those important moments, because as a child in your growing period, like neurologically it is also seen in your growing period, whenever ऐसी कोई बात होती है ना, जब तुमसे कोई ऐसी कोई बात कर रहा है, या तुम्हारे ऊपर कोई ऐसी चीज़ें like this kingdom is too small for you, go seek out your own kingdom, then you develop something inside of you. You get neuroplasticide inside your brain कि हाँ, I have to become a great king, I have to conquer the world. And वो चीज़ तुम्हारे साथ आगे बढ़ती जाती है. It remains in your subconscious. You never realize it, but it remains in your subconscious. Now, Bucephalus later on, it's kind of a spoiler in the story. Bucephalus later on went to be Alexander's main horse, and during his entire campaign, Bucephalus was with him. And Bucephalus died, I think, from that day when he was 11 years old to around 20 years later in present-day Pakistan, Balochistan, उस region में Bucephalus died. So he was an amazing horse. He was Alexander the Great's horse. Now another thing is, since he was 13-year-old, Alexander the Great was personally tutored by no one else than Aristotle himself. Can you imagine? One of the greatest philosophers, one of the greatest scientists of that period, even of history. अभी भी अगर हम देखें तो Aristotle is considered one of the greatest men who have ever lived, and he is giving personal tuitions to Alexander the Great. So this was one of those things कि Alexander is supposed to be great because he is being tutored by someone like Aristotle. Now another thing, क्या कहते हैं, Alexander always used to sleep with a book under his pillow and a sword. And now we are going to talk about that book for a while. That book was Iliad by Homer. So now what is Iliad? Now some of you guys might have watched the movie Troy, which came out in 2004, Brad Pitt's movie, in which he is playing the role of the character Achilles. अभी Christopher Nolan की नई movie भी आ रही है, The Odyssey. The Odyssey is also a poem or a book, कह सकते हैं, which has been written by Homer. So Iliad and Odyssey both are poems. These are legends. According to people, these are legends. These are real story या नहीं है real story. This is वही है, controversial thing है among historians. So yeah, Aristotle gave Alexander Homer's Iliad, which was annotated by himself. Like Aristotle himself annotated Homer's book and gave it to Alexander. So that's such a beautiful thing, and that's such a like Alexander is deriving inspiration from Achilles, and Homer himself and Aristotle himself has annotated that book. And like the book itself represents Alexander's life, because Alexander always wanted to be like Achilles. Achilles is one of those persons ki glory over life. Like, even if you are living a short life, that short life should be glorious. So that was what Achilles was all about. And Alexander followed the same path throughout his whole life. And he always was chasing glory. He was chasing more and more and more and more. That's why he wanted to go more towards east, and wanted to reach the end of the known world. So same thing was with Alexander, and same thing was with Achilles. तो हमें पता चलता है कि Alexander was so much inspired from Achilles himself. See, even Alexander was reading history, and हम लोग भी अभी history ले रहे हैं, and Alexander was reading history to derive inspiration, to learn from the lessons. Same as with us. Like, imagine Alexander reading history, now we are reading Alexander. Same thing, Julius Caesar and Napoleon Bonaparte, both of them have read about Alexander. Like, think like that: Alexander, Caesar, Napoleon. Alexander has read about Achilles. Caesar has read about Alexander, and then Bonaparte has read about both Caesar and Alexander. So that's such a beautiful thing. So uske baad, after we get to know that he was being tutored by Aristotle himself, then he around when he was 19-20 years old, then his father Philip II was assassinated at his own daughter's wedding. जब उसकी daughter की शादी हो रही थी, फिलिप को assassinate कर दिया था, and Alexander was around 20. तो really sorry, but मेरा मुंह सूख रहा है बताते बताते. So yeah, so now he decided कि now, because his father ने उसके पापा ने उससे कहा था कि like you have to conquer the whole world, you have to make a empire for yourself. So Alexander decided, now I'm going to conquer the whole world. कि अब I'm going to move towards east, and I'll keep moving until I reach the end of the world. And this is such a big thing. Like, there are like horses and people on, like there are only cavalry and infantry at that time. There are no tanks, nothing. There are no modern day fighter jets. He has to walk across all the continents and reach the east. And वो अभी है present day Europe में. And he has to conquer all of Asia by walking only. So I think around 334 BC around the campaign started, which lasted for 11 years and is considered one of the longest campaigns, one of the longest military campaigns to ever exist. And in 334 BC, he left Macedonia. He's a young 22-year-old guy, and he realized that I have to conquer this whole world, and then after that I'll return home after conquering the world. And that is another thing, that he never returns home. He leaves Macedonia when he was 22, and he never returns home. So first of all, because he was leaving, he stopped at Troy, जो उनके लिए like modern day जो Troy होगा, वहाँ पे they stopped. He paid his respect to Achilles' tomb. जो Achilles की tomb थी, उस पे उसने अपनी respect दी. And it is also said that, now this is about culture, it's also said that Alexander ran naked around Achilles' tomb and was so inspired by Achilles, and he felt that Achilles is one of the luckiest people to ever exist, because Homer ने जो Iliad लिखी है, जिसमें Achilles की उसने गाथा सुनाई है, that has immortalized Achilles forever. Achilles को हमेशा के लिए immortalize कर दिया है उस एक Iliad ने. Like, imagine, there are still universities out there which teach Iliad, and Iliad is a beautiful book. It is a poem actually, and वो अब तो books के way में भी आने लग गई है. And we still read Iliad. Even Alexander was reading Iliad. Like, far before Alexander, Iliad was written. Now Alexander read Iliad, we are also reading Iliad. So that is history. That is the beauty of history. So Troy पे वो सबसे पहले रुका, उसने Achilles को अपनी respect pay करी. And at the same time, before he was moving towards Asia, there was a knot, like there was a place called Gordian. वहाँ पे एक knot थी, like बहुत सारी रस्सियाँ थी और वो बंधी हुई थी आपस में, like बहुत बड़ी knot. It was known as the Gordian knot. Now Gordian knot के लिए कहा जाता था कि the one who solves the Gordian knot will conquer Asia. Like, imagine, एक नॉट है, बहुत बहुत लाइक कोई छोटी नॉट नहीं है, बहुत ही लाइक वो हो ही नहीं रही है किसी से सॉल्व, बहुत मोटी मोटी रस्सियों से वो नॉट बंधी हुई है और वो काफ़ी सालों से बंधी हुई है। एंड पिछले लाइक 100-150 सालों में किसी ने वो नॉट नहीं खोली है, गॉर्डियन नॉट। एंड अलेक्जेंडर वेंट अप टू इट कि दिस इज द गॉर्डियन नॉट एंड नाउ यू हैव टू सॉल्व इट बिकॉज द वन हु सॉल्व्स इट कॉन्कर्स एशिया। सो अलेक्जेंडर, नॉट लाइक एवरीवन एल्स, बिकॉज हर कोई आता था ट्राइज टू सॉल्व इट, पर कोई 100 साल से कर ही नहीं पाया। अलेक्जेंडर took out his sword and slashed the knot through. Now this is such a different thing to do. Like, this is such an out of the box thing to do, because Alexander could have solved it like everyone else. Everyone tried to solve it in the last 100 years, but Alexander, like, this is another legend. Maybe it might be a legend formed around him. Alexander is the one who does things out of the box. Like, everyone tried to solve the knot, Alexander took out his sword and slashed it in between. Now the knot has been solved. So like, this was why Alexander was considered one of the greatest rulers. Now because the knot has been solved, now now our king is going to conquer Asia. Now so see, that's the beauty of storytelling. Now we are going to tell the first major battle of Alexander's life. The first major battle of Alexander's life was the Battle of Granicus. The Battle of Granicus is said to take place when Alexander was around 22 years old. And Alexander, now imagine this, Alexander was a king. Alexander had a lot of generals, a lot of commanders under those generals, and the battle would have been led by those generals, those commanders. But Alexander, every single time, this is such a good leadership lesson for the young people, for us, that Alexander always, every single time, used to lead the men into battle. He was like, जो उसकी army थी, it was very small army, by the way. It was the 40,000 people, इतने लोगों की army होगी, and he used to charge in front. सबसे पहले Alexander used to charge into the enemy. And now ये होता है कि generally this doesn't happen because he is the king, यार, why would he charge? ठीक है, there are generals to do that stuff, but Alexander didn't think about it much, and he used to do it. And his first major battle could have been his last. This is a very important thing, because when he ran towards the enemy, after fighting for a while, it is said that Alexander के पीछे से कोई वार करने आ रहा था उसे. Alexander definitely was on a horse. Someone was on a horse too, and उसके हाथ में एक axe थी, and he was about to hit Alexander's head. Like, he was this close to hitting Alexander's head. And then Alexander's one of the dearest prince of Alexander, Cletus the Black. That, remember the name, Cletus the Black. He took his sword and slashed the hand of the enemy. तो like mid air, वो आदमी का जो हाथ है वो काट दिया गया है, and it has fallen on the ground, and Alexander's life was saved by Cletus the Black. And see, now this is what comes into our mind, कि when you are acting as a leader, when you are the first one to charge, then you are the first one जिसको arrow लग भी सकता है, you are the first one who will get hurt, but the supporters behind you, they are going to follow you, until the end. If they see this, if they see कि yes, you are the one who's charging them into battle. And in this battle, Alexander was saved. But another amazing thing, you know who killed Cletus the Black? Cletus the Black की death कैसे हुई थी? After I think 9-10 years, Cletus the Black was killed by Alexander himself. Now imagine a childhood friend जिसने तुम्हारी life बचाई है. Like, it would have taken Alexander's life. That axe would have slashed right through his helmet, and Alexander would have died right then and there. His first major battle, his first ambition to conquer the world, conquer Asia, would have धरा का धरा रह जाता वहीं पे. But Cletus the Black saved his life, and Cletus the Black was killed by Alexander himself in a party. So we are going to cover this. हम इसको आगे cover करेंगे. But like, this is a beautiful thing. This is a beautiful thing to tell. Now, after conquering that part, he moved towards Egypt. Now, Egypt was under the Persian Empire. Persian Empire was at that time, I think, one of the biggest empires in the whole world. Persian Empire ने जो था Egypt पे कब्जा किया हुआ था. Like, Egypt was they were using Egyptians as slaves. Egypt was slaved by Persia. So Alexander fought against a much larger Persian empire by himself. So Persia ने जब इजिप्ट पे रूल किया था, so after conquering Egypt, they realized that they saw Alexander not as a conqueror but as a savior, जिसने इन लोगों को बचाया है from those insolent Persians, from those Persians जो उनसे रात दिन काम कराते हैं, उनसे बचाया है अलेक्जेंडर ने इन सबको. एंड आफ्टर कॉन्करिंग इजिप्ट ही कुड हैव जस्ट मूव फॉरवर्ड. ठीक है, वो इजिप्ट में है, अब वो आगे बढ़ सकता है, बट ही डिनाइड, ही डिडंट मूव फॉरवर्ड, ही स्टॉप्ड देयर. He went 300 miles. He went 300 miles across the present day Sahara Desert. Sahara Desert के across वो 300 miles गया because he wanted to meet. There was a oracle at Siwa, जो which the Egyptians जिसे बहुत sacred consider करते थे. Imagine एक temple है जिसके अंदर एक priest रहता है. The place was known as Siwa. तो उसके लिए Alexander went 300 miles into the Sahara Desert and met that oracle, met that priest. So the story goes something like Alexander arrives at Siwa and he goes inside that temple. और वो जब वो टेम्पल के अंदर गया, he goes alone because अकेले जाना था. वो टेम्पल के अंदर जाता है and after talking to the priest, हम किसी को नहीं पता है, no one else knows, only the priest and Alexander knows what they were talking about. And after coming out, he declares that I am the son of Zeus Ammon. कि because at that time, because वही होता है, culture sharing होती है around continents या around places which are close to each other. So for Greeks it was Zeus, the god was Zeus, but for Egyptians the god was Zeus Ammon. So he declared that the priest or the oracle at Siwa has told me that I am the son of Zeus Ammon. And now imagine, the son of God has arrived to your country, and the son of God has freed you from the Persian Empire. So this was the kind of political impact, that the Egyptians had over Alexander. Now, when you are leading such a big army, वो army तुम्हें क्यों follow करेगी? Why would they follow a 22-year-old kid? Because 22-year-old, he was a kid. Obviously he was a kid. His father had died. That's why he became the king. उसे राजा बनाया नहीं गया था. Those were the men of Philip II. They were not the men of Alexander. But they decided to follow him because he was a god. Now imagine, a god is leading you into battle. The god of Macedonia, the god of Greek, the son of Zeus himself is leading you into battle. Now that's such a powerful thing. Like in battle, ये चीज़ तुम्हारे अंदर इतना जोश बढ़ा देगी, तुम्हारे अंदर इतनी, like you would be like, हमें कौन हरा सकता है when God himself is leading us. So that was the kind of political impact Alexander the Great had. फिर उसके बाद yes, so now like at Troy, Alexander ने Achilles को वो किया था. Like Alexander ने Achilles को कह सकते हैं कि honor किया था, and whatever he did. And now there are questions related to Alexander's sexuality. He was Alexander gay, or was Alexander had a lot of wives? These are certain questions historians argue about, but it is said Alexander had a wife. So there was a guy by the name Hephaestion. Hephaestion is said to be Alexander's love of his life, and he was a male, by the way. Hephaestion ने जब Alexander Troy में Achilles को अपने like respect पे कर रहा था, तो Hephaestion ने Patroclus को अपनी respect पे की थी. And Patroclus was the love of Achilles. Like now imagine this connection. This was the type of bonding Alexander had around himself, around his men. So he was also like a childhood friend, and he used to command half of the cavalry of Alexander. So now why am I talking about like Hephaestion out of nowhere? I'm talking about Hephaestion because later on Hephaestion got a lot ill. ठीक है, now the man who has conquered this much with you, like पूरा Egypt conquer कर लिया, you have defeated the Persian Empire, he has gone ill. Now Alexander was very sad about this. So he went to every single doctor. He was very worried कि Hephaestion को कुछ होना जाए, Hephaestion को कुछ होना जाए. And doctor advised Hephaestion कि don't eat a lot of food and avoid this. But Hephaestion, unlike anything, decided to eat. he ate a very big meal, and the next day we found out that Hephaestion had died. Alexander's love of his life has died, and Alexander was so heartbroken. It is said that Hephaestion की लाश पड़ी थी, and Alexander didn't let it go for 3 days. 3 days तक Alexander was clinging to that dead body and was crying. So that was the kind of thing Alexander had in himself. Now you might think a very ambitious conqueror when you think of Alexander, एक बहुत ही ambitious, driven conqueror. But at the same time, he was such a great lover कि 3 दिन तक एक dead body के साथ he is lying, and like this is the kind of love, this is the kind of intensity Alexander had in himself. Now we are going to talk about uh, the Battle of Hydaspes. Porus, जो for the Indian viewers, पोरस की जो बातें करते हैं कि पोरस was the one who defeated Alexander. So that battle happened in present day Punjab, around the Byas river, जहाँ पे ब्यास नदी बहती है. In 326 BC, I think Alexander was like 8 years into the campaign now. He had conquered present day Egypt. He had moved across Iran, Iraq, and now he is in Hydaspes. Now it was the first time Alexander was seeing war elephants, because India used to have war elephants, and they were a lot scared कि ये क्या है भाई, what is this? So yeah,